ain't going back. Not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide, gonna let all the fears slide. Got mother nature, it's on my side. Got all of the loving growing inside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the New Now. We're going to be on Odyssey with this one. I am delighted to have a first-time guest on, Sherry Sweeney from Keyhole Journeys. She has shared tons of amazing and interesting articles with us over the years, and I've been meaning to have a chat with her on mind parasites, her take on the non-human interference, let's say, that goes on inside of all of us, in my opinion, inside of our minds. It's what attracted me to her work in the first place. Sherry, hello.
Hello, Lorenzo. Thank you for inviting me.
For sure. So perhaps you can give our viewers, since this is your first time here, a bit of background, a bit about what you mean by mind parasites. I don't want to put any words in your mouth or in your mind, so to speak. And, we can run from there.
Yeah, mind parasites. That's a term that is used by the Native Americans, and they're called Wetiko. And before I knew about the Wetiko, this goes back way a lot of years ago, I just thought that these were entities that were on the dark side, because they invade the mind, and they actually intrude the mind with thoughts that are not your own thoughts. And they sound like your own thoughts, but they're not your own thoughts. And so a lot of people, I think all of us are affected by this on the planet. And I don't know where they came from. There's a lot of theories about that, and I don't know which one is right or if any of them are right. So these, but we'll call them mind parasites. But they are actually conscious, living beings, from my perspective, and they invade the mind. They insert negative thoughts, and they feed off of our negative energy. So they have to fool us into feeling negative. They have to fool us into feeling anxious or nervous or sad or insecure or any of those kinds of negative feelings. Now, the mainstream will say, well, these are normal feelings. Well, they're really not, in my view. I mean, we all have things that happen to us that make us sad, and that's fine. We all have things that happen that make us afraid. But that doesn't mean we have to be afraid all the time, or we have to be sad all the time. We can snap out of it. That part is normal. But when they linger on and on and on and on and on and on for, a long, long time, then that's a clue. That's not coming from you, because we are, we have these emotions and we experience them, but we're not made to linger in them forever. But these entities will trick you into this so that they can feed off of it. That's the bottom line.
Well, what is your work showing you in relation to, how they get in, where they stay, what they do? I know these are big questions. We could be talking for, days and weeks on the topic, but, let's take it apart and begin with what first brought your awareness to the, shall we say, duality of what's going on inside you, what's yours and what's not?
Well, I was plagued by these dark side entities from a young child until I was an adult. And that's because I had a very, very bad childhood growing up, and it was very abusive and torturous. So that made me vulnerable, that when someone is abused, either physically, mentally, or emotionally, that opens up the door for these entities to jump right in. Also, there are certain drugs that are a catalyst for bringing them in. My co-author for my book says that the methamphetamines are the door that opens up. He thinks that that's the worst drug that there is for opening up the door for these entities to come in. Alcohol will do it too. And so a lot of alcoholics are plagued with these things. And they're treated on the physical realm. They're not treated on the spiritual realm, so that makes it harder for them to get over their addiction. anyway, so I grew up with these things, and at the time I didn't know what they were. I knew they weren't me for some reason. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew they weren't me because they were, the thoughts that came into my mind weren't anything like what I would think, even as a child. So then when I became an adult, and old enough to do some research into what these were, because I went back and forth between they're not me, or there's something wrong with me, or something's wrong with my brain. I didn't know what it was, and I wanted to solve that problem. So I started researching, and I studied up on the brain to find out how it works. And that was real interesting, very interesting, as a matter of fact, but it didn't answer my questions. So then I started diving into self-help books, and, they didn't really approach the problem. And then, I don't know, I just went with, okay, these are not me, and I don't know what they are, but they seem to be alive. They seem to be conscious. They seem to be able to read my mind. They can dive into my memory banks and pull up things that I had long forgotten about, and then stomp all over with them, and, do the reruns. And they will even, they'll even take something good that you did in the past and somehow turn it around to make it seem like it was a bad thing. And, people get tricked by this. It's an old memory that, it's like, well, wait a minute, that was a good thing I did. No, but then there's this side thing, they'll twist it around and make it look ugly. So I just started with the premise that I need to figure out what to do about these things, how to get rid of these things. And then as I was searching, universe, it has a way of answering the desires that we have. So because I wanted to know so much what these were, I worked at an engineering company for a long time. And then my boss came to me one day and he said, how would you like to learn computer programming? Because we have a new project that requires a computer programmer and we don't have one. So I said, oh, sure, that sounds great. So they sent me to school and I learned computer programming. And what I learned also on the side was that from my studies of the brain, that our brain can be programmed, MK Ultra and all that stuff. Our brain can be programmed, but computer programming is like writing a code, and the program does exactly what you tell it to do. And it clicked with me that, okay, so the brain is sort of like a computer. What if I could write a code to change the way that I'm thinking? Because, it just seemed like I should be able to change this on my own. I didn't dare go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist because I thought if I told them what was going on with me, they would just throw me in the insane asylum and, pump me up with a bunch of drugs and I wouldn't be me again anymore. So I never told anybody about this stuff for a long, long time. So it turned out that the idea of reprogramming my brain was way too complicated in the midst of an attack. So I needed to find something that was really, really super easy. And then in my studies of the self-help books, I realized that, okay, everything I had learned in life, everything I had been taught was basically a lie. Because I wasn't who I was told I was. I wasn't, this bad person that I had grown up to think that I was. So then I thought, okay, so what if I just call out these thoughts and, say that they're a lie? That's a lie. So I developed this program and I call it the That's a Lie program. And now that program, and it worked. My theory was that if I could reprogram my own brain so that I was using this new program all the time, then the old program would atrophy and it wouldn't be able to work. And the theory was correct. That worked. It really worked well. And so I started telling people about this, and and then I met Jerry Marzinski, the co-author of our book, and told him about it. He used it on, he worked with schizophrenics in the prisons and in the hospitals. So he tried it on the schizophrenic patients and it worked on them too.
What did he do? What was the method that he, how did he use it on the schizophrenic patients?
Yeah, he told them that first he had to make them understand that these voices that they were hearing were not their voices. That was not who they were. Once they understood that, then he started working with them to say, okay, everything they're telling you is a lie. So you need to call it out as a lie. You need to not have any fear of them. Mm. So that's the big key, is no fear, and they're lying to you. So anyway, what's happened since then, and this is many years back, is, I have helped a lot of people, and Jerry has helped a lot of people. And Jerry deals with the schizophrenics and I deal with everybody else. The regular people that haven't gone off the edge with the seriousness of schizophrenia. So in fact, just today, I got a message on my Facebook messaging from a lady who had followed the instructions in the That's a Lie program. Mm-hmm. It's free to everybody. We don't charge anything for that. And so you can find that on my website.
Okay, I'll definitely leave a link below. Yeah,
and so you can also find it on Jerry's website too. I'll give you that link later on.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, she wrote to me and she told me her whole story and how she had been working with the That's a Lie program. And, she was working with this for herself and for her son, who was actually diagnosed with schizophrenic. Mm. He had been hospitalized. He had been very violent. And so it took him about a year to grasp the whole idea and then to start using it diligently, because it has to be a consistent thing. This is not an overnight fix, because these guys are very persistent. Even when you push them away, they'll come back and test the waters when you least expect it. So you have to stay aware. You don't have to be looking around for them, but you have to stay aware of your own mind, so that when the thought comes in that just isn't something you would think, then you know that that's what's going on, and you can say, well, that's a lie. I see you. I recognize you. That's a lie. I take it a step further after I do that, because I learned this later on. And I say, that's a lie. I send you love. And then they're gone. They're just absolutely gone. They don't like the energy of love. They don't like the energy of positive feelings. And love, of course, is the most powerful feeling. So we've helped a lot of people.
Interesting, because we do get a lot of people that are, looking to make changes in their life, up through the videos we've done, through the information we've shared online. And, I have shared from my own perspective over the years that there's always help if you're looking for it. And it seems to me this could be, one of those tools that anybody, as you say, being offered for free, can pick up for themselves if they're having trouble with their own thought process, let's say.
Yeah. So if you go to my website, keyholejourney.com, and click on the topics link, there's a whole bunch of different topics on that page. So you'll have to look for That's a Lie program and click on that, and it'll take you right there.
I mean, it's very interesting, even in the modern medicine way of speaking, that you said that, the methamphetamines or the speed is the gateway for these monsters. And, even I had that experience once when I first came to Japan, and I was feeling, I had some stomach problems at the time, maybe mm-hmm. different food, what have you. And I went to see a doctor who, later I wanted to punch in the nose, and he said, I'm just sad or stressed because, I don't have any friends and I'm not speaking to enough English people. And he prescribed something to me, which I did some research, which of course was a variant on Prozac, which is speed, basically. You know, and I said, isn't that interesting? You know, I have stomach problems and he's trying to get me hooked on speed, you know, as a doctorate of a doctor. And it's interesting that it goes back to what you have said, that that's the gateway to these parasites, and, you know, could be an interesting other study as to why medicine, you know, in all of its modern forms, so-called modern forms, is geared towards, you know, putting more of these into us instead of less.
Well, here's another interesting thing. They do not like marijuana.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they don't like marijuana. That comes from Jerry. It doesn't come from me, but his patients have told him that their voices have told him, don't take marijuana. We don't like you to take marijuana. We want you to take meth. Yeah, so they don't like marijuana because you know, our bodies are tuned into marijuana and our cannabis, which is the proper word for it. Did you know that marijuana is a made-up word to demonize it?
I think I've heard the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, they don't like cannabis at all because it calms you down, and our bodies are in tune with that. Our bodies are not in tune with methamphetamines, or if they were, then we wouldn't have the problems we have with it. We wouldn't have the addiction. Very few people on the planet. I've never heard of anybody being addicted to cannabis. I've heard people say they kind of rely on it, but I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, it's not addictive, but I'm sure that there are always exceptions to everything. So there'll be the one in the crowd that'll say, well, no, I'm addicted. So, or no, I can't take it. That's fine. You know, there's always exceptions to everything. So nothing is 100%.
I think if you're using it to hide your problems, which I've done before, and I know other people that have, then of course, maybe you're more addicted to hiding from the healing you need than from the actual, plant itself would be you could be hiding behind chocolate cake. You could be hiding behind relationships. You could be hiding behind, just about anything, in my opinion. And perhaps that's where the illusion of addiction comes in that you don't want to face whatever it is you're medicining yourself with or bombing yourself with. And that could be what brings on the desire. And I can only talk from my own perspective, because when I wasn't facing my fears, I thought I was addicted to things like medicine, like cannabis. And then eventually when I faced my own challenges, of course, that's gone as well.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because if you use cannabis for spiritual reasons or for healing, which is a very powerful drug, a very powerful substance for healing. You see, I don't look at it as a drug, so I'm trying not to use that word because it's a powerful plant. Just like some of the herbs that we grow are powerful healing plants too. So that the cannabis falls into that category, whether it's the hemp version or the euphoric version, whichever, doesn't matter, both are healing. So yeah, so I really don't think that there's an addiction. Like you say, it's hiding from yourself. So I think that's more in line with what it is. And I know people who can't use cannabis. They get they say that they get weird, scary visions and stuff like that. Well, I think that goes back to what's going on inside them. So they probably need to work on that too. But I'm not a doctor, so I can't really say.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people that freak out, and I used to use lots of kappa, all kinds of things to relax myself, until I realized, once again, I was hiding from my own stresses and problems. And as soon as I healed those in my way, I no longer miss or use any of those things that I used to use as temporary, let's say, relievers of pain, of the I think of what you're talking about, of the mind kind. So perhaps we can dive a little bit into, if you do have some of an understanding on what the mind parasites are.
What they are, let's see. I don't really, I think that they're beings that live in a different frequency than we live in, which is why we can't see them. but I mean, I've heard of some of Jerry's patients who have said they've seen him, but most people can't see these things because they can't see. Our vision is so narrow in the light spectrum. We see like just a tiny little fraction of what exists. So, and each light frequency in the whole spectrum of light is different. Every frequency is different, and our eyes are designed to only see a tiny little fraction of that. So we're only seeing, like, I think the number is 0.0000001% of reality. So it's not hard to realize that, okay, these beings, since they're alive and they are conscious beings, some of them are very smart and some of them are pretty stupid, but they live in a different frequency than we do. So they know how to cross that barrier or something. I'm not sure. So what they are, I don't know what their purpose is other than to feed and cause, they have to cause chaos and fear in order to feed. The way I look at our world here that we're in is that what we're seeing today in the large scale world theater is an infestation, a mass infestation of these things from the top down.
I would agree. It seems to me my whole life that they've been causing nothing but BS to stress or try and stress those of, around me, the world, everything else. And I do believe that what you said is true, is they use us for food. They even farm us in ways that most people don't want to even accept or look at. And as far as I can see, that would be the only explanation for the differences between the intelligence of what's possible and the obvious stupidity of what goes on most days around us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, the idea that we were changed long, long ago when this planet was invaded, our DNA was changed. That's I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels true. I mean, it's in the ancient records that's the way that it happened. So it seems like we were cut off from or prevented. They tried to prevent us from evolving into who we are, and it wasn't a permanent thing. So now we're at this point where we're starting to break through that change, and we're starting to wake up and realize, geez, I have all these capabilities. I know I have these capabilities. I just don't know how to use them yet. So what do I do to learn how to use them? And then you'll, when you start seeing a bunch of people going through this, and I'm seeing this, then you'll start seeing the dark side really clamping down, and I'm seeing that too. There's one trick after another, but what that's doing is waking more people up.
Yep, I think even that might possibly, or I've heard from some people I've chatted with, be a trick, in that we are fully in charge of our own DNA, and we just get tricked by the thoughts in our head to change ourselves, to take ourselves away from source. Which to me is the beauty of it, is that we can untrick ourselves, as you've said, by noticing the constant shenanigans going on around us, and how we have to so-called wake up. And I would feel that just simply means taking responsibility for everything inside, outside, and especially what's going on inside your mind.
Yeah, but who's doing the tricking? See, we're not tricking ourselves. We're listening to the dark side that's tricking us. Yeah,
but it's our actions, right? We don't have to listen.
It is our actions, that's for sure. But if we don't know the difference between our voice, our thoughts, and the intruder's thoughts, because they sound just like our thoughts, then we're going to get tricked. We're going to get fooled. Exactly. Well, after we get fooled enough, we're like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. This isn't right. This isn't me, right? So then we have to start like, okay, I'm not going to go for that trick anymore. I'm going to look for more information. So we find more information. We listen to other people talk to reveal the information they have found, and one thing and another. And then we start putting the more puzzle pieces together, and pretty soon a picture starts to form.
Well, I mean, I'm agreeing with you then. So you've untricked yourself by understanding that there was a trick involved. And and so I think we come into this world, I would say, with the full capabilities of doing whatever it is that we feel is possible. You know, we all have our stresses and our horrible experiences as children. You know, such as you said, we've all been abused, I think, physically or mentally, even by loving parents or so-called loving parents. And you know, I would agree with you. It gives us the opportunity, though, to see what's going on in relation to what we would like to see going on, perhaps in relation to what we don't like.
Yeah, and actually, I think that makes us even stronger. Because if we had not gone through if we had a perfect life when we showed up here, and we didn't know anything about struggle, and we didn't know anything about working for something or learning something, we just had it all, that wouldn't be a very interesting life to me. You know, I mean, if you watch some of these Star Trek series where they run into some alien being that is all powerful, right? And so they just, you know, play with planets and play with people, and they get disruptive and all that stuff. Well, you know, that's no fun. I mean, that's because they, you know, whatever, they didn't go through anything on their own, maybe. But you look at people on this planet who maybe they're born into a very well-to-do family and loving parents, and parents give them everything, and the child doesn't learn to work for something to accomplish something on their own. I don't know, that to me, that doesn't seem like a very interesting lifetime.
No, those people seem wretched to me. I've met tons of them growing up. You know, I used to hang out with some of them from my days as a stockbroker. You know, I can go into more stories there. And, you know, what I noticed from the people that were given everything is there was something seriously evil living inside their consciousness. Not all of them. I'm sure there's loving people. I don't want to, you know, paint a picture that everyone's the same. But, you know, I would agree, Sherry, that if you've never had a challenge of taking control of your life because everything was easy, maybe something else has taken control of you.
Now, I'm not advocating that everybody gets abused. No, by no way. There are other ways to be challenged, you know.
For sure. I think this life, though, brings everyone into that realm of challenge, right? Especially these days. Seems to me everyone that's born is born into challenge of one form or another. And I would say that's good. Like you said, it makes you strong. You know, through challenge born, it gives you the ability to discern, to learn, to grow up, and to see maybe what's yours inside and what's not yours inside, as you mentioned, to program your own life instead of having it programmed for you.
Yeah, I seem to have lost my vision of you.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, I agree with that. So here's the thing. If the more people who realize what the mind virus is, and then they work with that within themselves, and they can feel free to talk to other people about it. It's not so taboo these days as it used to be. When I first discovered this, it was very taboo. You get thrown in the loony bin for that. But yeah, the more people that can understand what the mind virus is and see that in themselves, and then maybe even use my That's a Lie program for starters, maybe develop their own program as they go along. But the That's a Lie program is a very simple program to use. It's compatible with everybody who's tried it. I've had some people say, oh, I tried it and it didn't work. And I'd say, well, how long have you been working with it? Oh, I tried it for a day or two and it didn't do anything. Well, you know, it doesn't work that way. So for some people, it works immediately and then they think they're done. So they're surprised when, you know, they get attacked again. So it just doesn't work that way. It becomes a way of life. Oh.
I would agree. I mean, if you're not consciously controlling yourself at every moment, something else is probably trying to consciously control you. And And, perhaps that's how they got in the first place, is we're taught to be lazy, to, be entertained, to be entrapped, to have things given to us instead of realizing, we have to get off our own behinds and make life the way we want instead of waiting for something to happen to us. It's our lot, and our great gift as humans to realize we're creators, and it's up to us to create, or else, we get uncreated, I would say, by not being creative.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the world is today, I see what we call the normies. And they are just lost. It's like the mind virus is totally embedded in them. Making them be afraid to look at any kind of truth. I don't know how they got to where they are, but there's my granddaughter was visiting me a while back, and she said she was talking about some of her friends that actually think President Biden is a good guy. Mm. I said, really? I mean, these are teenagers, So if that's the case, if the teenage crowd is thinking that Biden is a good guy, wow, I mean, they're not I guess they're not exposed to the alternative media. They're not exposed to the stuff that's actually going on. That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah, it's kind of a dangerous thing to be happening with the teenagers,
Well, cell phones, TV, media, all these things being limited. Nobody's being taught how to discern or think for themselves. So I'm not surprised if the cell phone is telling them that Biden's a good guy, or the TV shows are telling that Biden's a good guy. If you haven't learned to think for yourselves, and as you said at the beginning of our chat, if you believe that voice is yours and that voice is telling you Biden's a good guy.
Okay. I hear you there, but if they're looking at the news, even the mainstream news, they should see that something is off, right? Something is wrong. I just wonder about where their parents or their guardians are in all of this.
Well, probably lost, the same as everyone. I see people all the time. I chat with people that are, believe they're doing the good when they're doing the bad. I hear, even Hitler thought he was doing loving things, or so, or so it goes. I think all evil in some ways thinks it's doing good, which is where the parasites come in. And, if the parasites want to trick the world into a bad place, in other words, look around, and they tell the people doing the bad, they're doing the good, and they haven't learned through, your program or others, or even their own life, that, again, they're not their mind, that they've been invaded, and they believe it 100%. Well, there you go.
Well, that's true. I'm encouraged, though, from the news articles that I look at and the programs that I look at, I'm very encouraged of, how many people on the planet are becoming aware of what is going on right in front of their nose, especially this latest scam, the monkey virus, right? I had the same feeling with that one that I did with the first one, that it was a scam right off the bat, because I had been following the news I've been looking into the dark side for decades. So I recognized this right away, that, okay, I hope people don't fall for it. Well, they did. So I was pretty, I guess, disappointed in humanity for that. But I also realized that is probably a lesson that we had to learn.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's out in the open. I would say for people with eyes to see, I mean, corona means crown. So the crown virus, it's where these monsters live. Even the monkey mind, Zen would talk about it. And by that, I mean, Zen Buddhism or other alternative ways of looking at life. They call it to sit and meditate to get the monkey mind off. So a monkey virus, in my understanding, in my guess, the parasites are laughing at us, I would think, by basically coronavirus, crown problem, crown invasion, monkey mind, monkeypox, monkey invasion. And it's all the same BS of, as you mentioned, that voice in our head that's not ours, where they live, where they eat. And then we get focused on that. And here we are. or hear lots of people are
they're just
anyways.
like they're rubbing their hands together, like, look at the feast, look at the feast. I mean, they're just gluttonous, and all the negative energy that's happening with the fear. But I think this time, regardless of what the mainstream establishment news is saying, I don't think this time people are falling for it. There's still going to be a handful that are going to fall for it, and the establishment news will focus on them and blow them up as though that's the majority. But I really don't think that's going to actually be the majority. I just think that I might be proven wrong for sure, but when I look out and see the millions of people that are realizing what is happening on this planet all over the world, I'm very encouraged, because I'm seeing that, okay, maybe they don't know about the mind virus, but they see the wrongdoing that these governments are doing, and that's a good thing. So I think that the establishment news has of course, that's the main thing that people see. And so they have a way of, making a small group of people look like the majority.
For sure. I mean, it's all an illusion. And what can happen, in my opinion, is if, I would turn off the TV or the mainstream news. Maybe what's missing, I had a good chat with I Am Psalms just before we came on here, is, people's ability to go out of their mind, get into their hearts, where the mind virus, as you say, can't live with love, is afraid of love, runs away from love, and it's probably impossible for them to be there.
Oh, it is. They really fear love, because they think love will hurt them. And so they're wrong, of course. The love will not hurt them. But, because if they're part of creation, right, then they have to learn that they were made by a loving creator, right? They weren't made, unless they're robots, and they very well could be robots for all I know. Sometimes they'll act robotic, so I don't really know for sure but they have a consciousness. So, maybe it's an advanced technology that's going on in another frequency that
I've heard that as well. I mean, even if it's AI, and creator made everything, creator made AI through the creators that created the AI. So, I would agree in the sense that everything comes from the creator, even as a challenger. If you want to see these parasites are a challenge to, like you said earlier, if you are given everything in life and you're born without a challenge, you don't get stronger, and you don't see the way to a beautiful way of existence through the stresses and challenges we all face. And maybe that's a nice way to even look at these crazy mind parasites as a gift towards how you need to, or you can use them to gain your own autonomous strength by learning not to listen to the nuttiness in your head.
I've heard that too. I've read about it too. And that makes sense, that what these parasites do, since they can read your memory, they will bring up those things that you have not resolved. And they'll bring it up and throw it in your face over and over and over again until you resolve it. And when you resolve it, you're no longer feeding them. And then they'll either go on to another unresolved situation, or they'll have to leave.
I mean, there you go. I mean, your body, if you eat too much, it has to excrete, we'll say politely. When you put a lot of garbage inside or excess food, you have to get rid of it. And I think you and I are coming to something here, in that the mind parasites are maybe simply an aspect of our spiritual or energetic body that are reminding us what needs to be cleared. I mean, it would have to be unpleasant. I mean, if we've all been constipated, let's say, and it feels unpleasant, or you've all had to take a pee and you've been on a long train ride and it feels unpleasant to hold things for too long. I'm just using a funny analogy here. Yeah. So, you need something unpleasant to remind you of what is required to become pleasant again. And like you said, if you've had trauma, or you're holding memories, you're holding something inside you that's not loving and it's damaging to your energetic body, well, wouldn't these parasites just be doing their job but reminding you of all the unpleasantness you need to clean.
That's a very good possibility. And in thinking about it, it makes sense to me. I mean, but they can go, I mean, how do the schizophrenics play into this? They're the top end of those affected. So most of us are, we're affected, and we're affected at different degrees. Some are hardly affected at all. They don't even notice it. But others are severely affected, and that's in the category of schizophrenia. Mm-hmm. They don't get any help from psychiatry, because psychiatry cannot grasp the idea of a spiritual ailment, of a spiritual, not even a disease, but a spiritual, I suppose you could call it a disease.
Sure.
But they can't grasp that. So they continue to treat it as if it's a physical disease. And it's not a physical disease, it's a spiritual one. Now, we're in a definite spiritual battle as it is. It's like the gods are fighting each other and humanity's caught in the middle.
Well, any healing needs, the full a full understanding of what's causing the problem, right? So as you say, psychiatry, if you're not looking at the root cause of what's going on, and they're dismissing the spiritual aspect or the energetic aspects of the challenges, well, they've lost before they've even started, right? If they're trying to heal something from the wrong perspective.
Yeah, they end up poisoning the poor guy or the poor woman who is suffering from schizophrenia. And they don't explain what's going on. That's why our findings are so important to these people.
I agree. I mean, everyone's got a role. I work how I work, and you've done what you've done. And Jerry, you've mentioned, and I've watched many of his videos and done some reading on the topics of what he's covered. And I would say, there's nothing but help out there for those that are willing to look for it, right? For those that are willing to help, and for those that are willing to, take the first steps in allowing themselves to maybe get a grasp on what is ailing them. Yeah.
And so people need to, this is a new audience for me. So I want to put the word out that if you know anybody who is suffering from schizophrenia, don't rush them off to a psychiatrist. First sit down and ask them what the voices are telling them. I mean, don't just chuck it off as a hallucination, because that's the propaganda. The propaganda is it's a hallucination. There's no cure for it. Well, there is a cure for it. And we've proven that. Jerry has proven that. He's taken it quite a few steps forward. He has a consulting service that he does, and he's had very good successes. And I've had wonderful successes too with people, everybody else, that wants it. So, and I don't charge for it. I probably should, but I don't do that. I have a donation thing on my page, and if someone wants to donate, that's fine. But the problem I see is that there's so many people that need help that don't have the money because they're already in this battle, and they've tried all kinds of different things. And by the time they find someone like me or someone like you or someone like Jerry, they don't have any money. So I just, all I do is I point them to the That's a Lie program, and I'll talk to them and let them tell the story, and then I'll give my insights. And I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to give any recommendations other than read the That's a Lie program and follow that diligently and stubbornly and with, audacity and all that good stuff. Just don't give up. And that has been very, very successful.
Well, that's great advice. And I think it's another piece of the puzzle, another piece of pie, whatever you want to, however you want to look at it. Something I've been sharing for years and years. If you want to heal yourself, if you want to help someone get healed, if you have $5 in your pocket or no dollars or $50 million, there's always a way to begin. I mean, Sherry's program, as she said, is free. There's probably other ones that are not, but either way, to take a step in that direction to heal yourself, there's always options and ways to get better.
Yeah, and there's people out there who have gone through similar situations. They've already healed themselves. They can tell you how they did it. In fact, there's a group that Jerry and I developed on Facebook. It's a private group where people who are hearing voices or having intrusive thoughts can join and tell their stories among people who are experiencing similar situations. So, this is, most people don't want to talk about this because they're afraid that people are going to think they're crazy. Well, they're not crazy.
Yeah.
In fact, I even wrote a blog, does mental illness exist? And other than some kind of organic damage to the brain itself, I don't really think that mental illness exists.
I would agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all a mind virus, a mind parasite. And once you learn to tell the difference between the lies and the love, let's say, then you can be on your own path towards getting a grasp on what's going on inside you and taking responsibility. I mean, I believe firmly there's no choice in the matter. If you don't take responsibility for yourself, something else will.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Boy, we're just agreeing with each other all over the place.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would go a little deeper. I think, like I said, I think they use us for food and they abuse us and they've chosen, to feed on us. But, and there's the way of love, as Sherry said, as well, as perhaps as an answer and a means to healing the fears that live inside us if we allow them to. And, really, I think we've come to a point where anybody that wants to can do some stuff for themselves if they choose to do so.
Yeah, they just have to get away from the fear because these entities don't have any power of their own. Mm. The only power that they have is what we give them. So when we're afraid, and they'll be super scary and they'll, just say all kinds of really horrible, nasty, really bad things. And if you can not be afraid of them, knowing that they don't have power of their own in the first place. They want it from you. And the way that they get it is to feed off of you. So if they can get you to be afraid of them, that's a meal for them. And they can take over, they can take over your psyche that way.
For sure.
They can really take you over if you let them. That's the same thing the government's doing. If you let the government have all this power, of course they're going to take it. They're like the parasites. They're like the mind parasites.
They might even be the mind parasites.
They probably are the mind parasites. They're for sure infested with the mind parasites. I know that. Well,
I've met a few politicians when I was living in Canada, and I've had some face-to-face chats with them. And to me, it seems like something funny is going on. And this is as good a way to look at it as any, is they seem to me to be infested with something that wasn't so nice to be around, is the polite way I'll put it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lied to so much, even to the biblical days. The Bible itself, I mean, I'm a spiritual person, but I don't follow any sort of religion. I am a recovered Catholic. So from childhood. But in studying, I did an in-depth study of the scriptures in the Bible, which led me to the scriptures of other religions and other ways of thinking. And it led me to the ancient scriptures. And I was fascinated by that, what I learned. And it was confirmed, I don't know, a year or so ago by a guy named Paul Wallace, who wrote a book called, Escape from Eden, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, I read that. It's a great book.
It is a great book. Well, he confirmed what I had been thinking and saying for quite a long time, but I couldn't put it into his words. What I realized when I was reading the scriptures was that, okay, the God in the Old Testament is not the creator God, is not the source of life God. The gods in the Bible are these psychopathic ETs, basically, beings that came from the sky, according to the scriptures. And so when the Bible was translated, they tried to, you know this from reading the book, they tried to use the word Elohim, which is a plural word. This I didn't know until I started listening to Paul Wallace. And they tried to use that. They tried to use Elohim as God, and it doesn't fit. It doesn't work. It makes us think that, okay, so we're being asked to worship this psychopathic God. And how does that work for us? That messes us up in a big way. So, yeah, so the going back to the original language tells us that, okay, we were lied to back then. We've been lied to ever since. And so these mind viruses have been with us all along. They've been messing with us. They've been lying to us. We don't even know who we are anymore. That's the whole point. So, yeah, so it's time for us just to take advantage of this particular era that we're in to continue to grow our awareness of who we are and how powerful we are. Because, we have this inner technology that is very, very powerful. We just have to learn how to use it with love.
Yep, I would say go to your hearts. It's the one thing the mind viruses can't understand and can't deal with. I've heard it's 50 times more powerful than your head anyways. Perhaps that's what all the schooling and all the nonsense does, is it tricks you to live in your mind when it's not where you should live. It's a tool, not a destination. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful tool if we use it with our heart. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And we're in coherence with our heart, then it's a fantastic way of looking at life. It's a really good way to live. It's a great way to put it. Yeah. So if people could know that any negative thoughts that they have, any negative feelings that they have, that doesn't belong to them. That's not them. There's really nothing to fear. Really, there's really nothing to fear. There's no virus to fear. I mean, I don't even think that viruses exist, because I go along with the terrain theory rather than the germ theory, which is another lie. To trick us into being afraid of, some kind of disease and penetrating our body and screwing up our lives. All of that is the terrain theory of how we live, and what we put into our body makes a difference. Of course. But then, of course, we got tricked into thinking, well, we're going to do GMOs to save the world, right? And all that did was damage everything. Sure, I would agree. So if you start looking at every bit of these little bits and pieces, and you realize that every single one of them is a big lie, and it's heading toward destruction rather than, building up, then you can just, think, well, okay, is this the mind virus doing this? Well, sure it is. Yeah, pay attention, see what's loving, see what's not. It's actually not so difficult. The difficulty is in the choice. As Sherry said, which seems to me, instead of letting your mind rule your heart, let your heart rule your mind. And, sure, it'll be hard. Maybe you have to put down whatever that you haven't liked about your life, or you have to find out how you've been not so nice by listening to it, even if you've been not so nice to yourself, or you've been not so nice to others. But if you accept responsibility, take the spiritual colonic, we'll say, and you'll probably feel much better afterwards. That would be my guess. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. All right. Sherry, it seems to me we've come to a nice conclusion, that everyone can figure things out for themselves if they want to put some of the effort in. You've given them a couple or 3 new tools at the very least in this chat. Is there anything you'd like to leave your potential new viewers with here? Well, I'd like to make a plug for our book, if I might. Of course. Okay. It's Jerry Marzinski and Sherry Sweeney wrote this book. It's called The Amazing Journey into the Psychotic Mind, Breaking the Spell of the Ivory Tower. Well, perhaps you can send me a link once we're off. I have your website, but a link directly to the book, and maybe a short write-up about it, or even how our lovely viewers can support you through that. And if you want to send me Jerry's site as well, or anything at all that you would like them to do further studies with, I am totally going to share it. with this particular chat. And if anyone has any questions, suggestions, recommendations for further chats with Sherry, I'd be delighted to pick them up. If anybody has any questions that we can answer, I can pass them along, or we can see what's possible together. And, let it be known that if you live in love, there's always ways to get back to your full health, spiritual and otherwise.
Yeah, that sounds great. This was a totally impromptu conversation, so I didn't prepare for anything. So, this was just as we took it. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to have Sherry back on and to see how we can take things further. Just want to say I love you all very much. Sherry, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a little ways coming. We've tried many times until we got here. So with that, I'd like to leave one last bit of advice is if you're having some challenges to get to where you need to go, keep trying. Eventually, you'll get there.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you again soon.
Lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom first is what I say.